This year, I created so many wonderful appetizers because we hosted events and we attended so many events, and there was always an appetizer to whip up. And in this video, I am sharing the top 10 out of all of them from the whole year. So join me now as I share what those are, 1 through 10, and you'll see number 10 being the favorite of them all. These were the ones that people either asked for the recipe, they commented how much they loved them, or I just saw them disappear in minutes when I put them out. So I knew they were the fan favorites. So let me share you now the 10 ultimate appetizers of 2024. Let's go. The first appetizer that was a favorite this year is this Sushi Bake. If you like sushi, you're gonna love this. It is the easy way to make sushi with all the same flavors. We're gonna first start with our rice. This is 2 cups of rice. I am rinsing it until the water runs clear. And then I'm gonna add it to my quick cooker, and I'm gonna add to that 2.5 cups of water. I'm gonna give it a quick stir, and then I'm gonna put the lid on and make sure that my quick release is fully closed. And then I'm gonna put it on the rice setting, and that's all there is to it. Once our rice is completely cooked, we're gonna grab a baking dish and we're gonna make the seasoning mix for our rice. It includes 1/4 cup of rice wine vinegar, 1 tablespoon of sugar, and 1 teaspoon of salt. I'm gonna mix that together and then put it in the microwave for 30 seconds until the sugar and the salt are dissolved. Looks like we're good. I'm gonna pour this on top of that rice. Now I'm gonna add some white sesame seeds and I'm gonna fold those in as well. This is a 9x13 dish that I've sprayed with some olive oil spray. Now that my rice is in a flat layer, it's time for the next layer of our crab mixture. 1 pound of flaky crab that I'm gonna take out and break apart, and I am gonna finely chop into itty bitty pieces. I started doing this and got about halfway through when I realized I should be using my Pampered Chef manual chopper for this. It's a perfect tool for this job. To our minced crab, we're adding 1/4 cup of Kewpie mayonnaise. Kewpie mayonnaise is a Japanese mayo, and it really is worth it if you can find this. It has that great umami flavor that really makes the sushi. And I'm adding about 1 teaspoon of sriracha. If you like things a little spicier, by all means, add a little bit more, but I like it a little more on the mild side. So I'm gonna stir that in, and I've noticed about sriracha, it used to be like the most popular ingredient. Everything was sriracha flavor, but actually now it's a little bit harder to find. But when you do wanna add it into this dish. Now I made this the night before the actual event. So what I'm doing now is I'm just gonna beat up 1 egg, and I'm gonna put that to the side and keep it in the fridge and mix it right before the party begins. That way my crab mixture is not sitting in the fridge for a day with that egg in it. Here it is, the day of the party. I am now ready to add that egg into the crab mixture and get that all blended. Now I'm adding this special ingredient on top of my rice. This is furikake, and it is a Japanese multi-purpose seasoning. It contains white and black sesame seeds, nori, so some black seaweed, some salt and kelp powder. It's gonna give it that authentic sushi flavoring. I was able to find this at my local Walmart, so hopefully this is an accessible ingredient. I think it just adds that umami and that special flavoring that really gives it that authentic sushi taste. So if you can find it, great. If not, I wouldn't worry about it. Maybe get some black sesame seeds or white sesame seeds to put on top. I went ahead and put my crab mixture, and then I did another little sprinkle of our furikake. I then am drizzling on top the Kewpie mayo, as well as I'm going to put a little bit of the sriracha. This is to make it visually pleasing, as well as add a little bit more of those flavors into the sushi. I am just putting a little drizzle of that sriracha, trying to not have it too spicy, and look how great it looks. Into the oven, 350 degrees, it goes for 35 minutes. And wait a second, what is he doing? He's stealing a shrimp. That's what happens when you turn your back and you leave the appetizers unattended. Too funny. The Sushi Bake turned out fantastic. Everybody loved it. I just served it with some cucumbers, green onions, and nori sheets on the side. I made so many appetizers with brie this year, but this one was a favorite because of its savory ingredients. Sun-dried tomatoes, pesto, my large brie wheel, and some parsley for garnish. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna score our brie cheese. The reason I'm scoring the cheese is because the oil from the tomatoes and the pesto will just ooze and seep into the cheese, making it even more flavorful. I'm cutting the sun-dried tomatoes into smaller pieces, and I'm doing this on parchment paper because that oil can tend to stain your cutting board. So I am doing it on this paper instead. I'm going to add about a tablespoon of minced garlic to the tomatoes, and then I'm going to drizzle just a little bit of that oil to help with the consistency. I give the pesto a good stir because that oil usually sits on top, and now I'm just going to spread it entirely over the brie wheel, and then I'm going to add the sun-dried tomatoes on top of that. I'm going to get a good layer, making sure it's completely coated, and I'll put this in a 350-degree oven for about 15 minutes, and then I will slice up a baguette that I will also toast with the cheese. This turned out so delicious, and it was so easy to make. The flavors are perfect. Another favorite of this year are these jalapeno popper bites. We start with 1 block of cream cheese, add 1 cup of cheddar cheese, a 1/4 cup of pickled jalapenos, 1/2 cup of diced bacon bits, and 2 tablespoons of green onions. I'm also going to add about a teaspoon of some garlic powder. If you don't have pickled jalapenos, you can use regular or any kind of jalapeno you want based on the heat level you prefer. I give that a good stir until everything is combined, and now I'm ready to make our cups with these wonton wrappers. I coat them with oil and put them in my muffin tin. We're going to bake them at 350 for about 6 minutes till they get crisp. And now I'm going to take my filling and put 1 medium scoop with my scooper from Pampered Chef into each of those wonton wrappers. Back into the oven for 3 to 5 minutes, and you end up with the perfect bite. Oh my gosh, everyone loved this so much, they all wanted the recipe. The next appetizer that was a hit of this year were these 2-ingredient stuffed mushrooms. Just wash these mushrooms, and I'm taking out the stem and just putting them on my air fryer rack. The second ingredient with our mushrooms is market side. You could use any dip, but I have the jalapeno artichoke dip. It has cream cheese, Parmesan cheese, mayonnaise, jalapeno peppers, artichoke hearts, and sour cream. And it couldn't be easier. I just put a dollop of each of those into the mushroom cap, and now they're ready to go into the air fryer for about 10 minutes. I'll start them on the bottom rack to get that mushroom cooked, and then I'll finish it off on the top rack to get the cheese kind of golden. So let's go ahead and do that now. Let's go ahead and let's go. In fact, I might even do custom. And let's go with let's go with 8 minutes. Let's go a little lower on the heat. Let's go with 325. There we go. In the end, these cooked for 8 minutes at 350 and then another 8 minutes at 325, and I didn't have to air fry them. They got nice and golden from just that 16 minutes. They came out so good, and I added some arugula at the base just to help with that presentation. If you like a little kick, you like jalapenos, you're gonna love these because it has that artichoke and that cream cheese, and then the mushroom has that juiciness to it. So beautiful. These are perfect peppers, and they're going to be so easy to make at your next party. Another appetizer that was a hit at one of our parties was these Greek feta lamb meatball bites. I start with 2 pounds of ground lamb. I get my lamb from Aldi. I just love their lamb products. They just have a great variety. And I'm using 2 pounds. The recipe calls for 1, but I'm doubling since I'm having a party. I'm adding 2 teaspoons of Italian seasoning, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, as well as a sprinkle of salt. Not too much salt, as your feta can be a little salty and we don't want to have over-salted meatballs. I'm going to mix this by hand, and then I'm going to add the seasonings again since I did double the recipe. Now I'll add my 1 cup of crumbled feta cheese, as well as 12 ounces of frozen spinach that I have completely defrosted and I've thoroughly squeezed to get all the water out. I'll combine that by hand and then set aside as I'm ready to make our little muffin cups. So I'm starting with a package of crescent roll dough that I've already separated into 2 sections, and I've rolled it out into 10 by 8 inch rectangles. Now I'm ready to make my little circles. I have my lemon juicer here that is the perfect 2-inch circle size. So I'm going to go ahead and press those out. You can use any cup or bowl you have to get the 2-inch perfect circle size. Just be sure to use some flour on your surface. This will help prevent any sticking and easy removal of the dough. Using my medium scoop from Pampered Chef, I'm going to add 1 dollop of the meat mixture to each of the muffin cups, and then I'm going to bake this in a 375-degree oven for about 15 minutes. When they're done cooking, I'm going to add a dollop of tzatziki sauce on top. Now you can make your tzatziki from scratch, but I take a shortcut from Aldi. They have this tzatziki cucumber dill yogurt sauce that goes so great with these meatballs, and just a dollop on top is perfect. You can also use ground beef or ground turkey if you do not like lamb, but my guests love these, as did I. They were delicious. This year, on many of our game day spreads, I made many types of sliders, but this one was hands down my favorite. We're using corned beef. We're going to put that along with half a can of Guinness beer in our slow cooker. We're going to let that go on low for about 5 to 6 hours. The meat is going to be so tender and perfect, and you end up with this wonderful, tender, beautifully seasoned, because you put the seasoned packet on top of your meat, and that's all you have to do. It comes in the packet with the brisket. So perfect. Now let's go ahead and start assembling our sliders. Before we layer our corned beef sliders, we're going to make the butter, garlic, Parmesan topping. We're going to start with half a stick of butter. And then we're going to add to that a tablespoon of Dijon mustard, half a teaspoon of garlic powder, tablespoon of Parmesan cheese. I am going to add, this is something, it did call for poppy seeds, but caraway seeds are a lot of times what you see on Reubens, in the bread. So I'm just going to add a little bit of that. I'm going to microwave that for 30 seconds. While that's microwaving, we're going to go ahead and make the dressing that's going to go on the bread of our sliders. With a third a cup of mayonnaise, 1.5 tablespoons of ketchup, 1.5 teaspoons of horseradish, that's prepared horseradish, and a half a teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce. Let's give that a good stir. Let's assemble our sliders, starting with our Aldi package of Hawaiian rolls. I take my serrated knife and I go across them horizontally, and now I have 2 sections, the top and the bottom, and I'm going to spread that dressing all over. Okay, so I put the bottom here, and now I'm going to layer. We have our corned beef that we cooked in our slow cooker. I'll add that in an even layer, breaking apart the pieces, and then I'll add sliced Swiss cheese, and then I'm adding sauerkraut that I have drained. It's a can of sauerkraut, and I'm draining that really well before putting it on the sandwich so I don't have a soggy sandwich. More corned beef, more Swiss cheese. I decided I didn't need more sauce, so I whipped up another batch. Now we'll put that on top. Now let's take our melted butter Dijon mixture. Ready for our air fryer, but I am gonna actually bake them in our air fryer because I don't want them to get too dried out and too brown. So I'm gonna put them on the lower rack in the air fryer on bake, and then I'm gonna cover them with tin foil and finish them off. Out of the air fryer after baking for about 10 minutes. I added more of the butter mixture on top because I had some left, and I just like the flavor so much, and I like how it glistens and makes it just look so good and so rich. I also added a few more caraway seeds on top just for a little crunch and a little color. These looked and smelled so amazing. I had to have one myself. I couldn't wait any longer. That is one of the best sliders I think I've ever had. I highly recommend making these. Up next, another crowd favorite this year is this crab Rangoon dip with these homemade wonton chips. We'll start with our wonton wraps that I'm going to put on a cookie sheet and spray with olive oil spray, and use my pastry brush to get that olive oil all on the wrap. I'm going to sprinkle it with garlic salt, and then I'm using a pizza cutter to cut them in half. That way they're more dippable. You put them in the oven for about 5 minutes, and you got to watch these. They can burn so easily and even catch on fire, I've heard. So do stay with them the whole time. I coated one batch with sesame oil and sesame seeds to give it a little variation. Then I store them in a plastic bag, and I'm going to keep them on the counter until the day of the party and serve it with our dip. Let's go ahead and make that dip. We're adding to our bowl 1 block of softened cream cheese, a half a cup of mayonnaise, and a 1/4 cup of sour cream. 1 teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce, and 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. Mix on medium-high with your hand mixer for about 2 minutes. Nice and fluffy. Now to our bowl, we're gonna add our 2 cans of white crab meat. Give that a quick stir to get all that crab meat mixed in, and then we're going to add 1/4 cup of fresh Parmesan cheese, 1/2 cup of shredded mozzarella cheese, and then we also have 1/3 cup of mozzarella reserved for the top right before baking. I'm adding 1/2 tablespoon of minced garlic, and then I'm just going to combine everything again before adding to our dish. The dip gets added to our ceramic baking dish, and I'm going to cook it in a 350-degree oven for 15 minutes. Before I do, I sprinkle on that reserved cheese so it gets a nice golden crust. This was such a party hit, and those wonton chips make the difference. I think it makes the dip. It was fantastic, a crowd favorite. Speaking of favorites, this is my family's favorite dip. It had to be on the list for the favorites of this year. To our bowl, 4 ounces of cream cheese, 1/2 cup of sour cream, 3/4 a cup of mayonnaise, green onions. I'm only going to do half because I'm going to keep some for the top. 3 green onions chopped. Now let's add our cheddar cheese. This is 8 ounces of sharp cheddar cheese that I've shredded, and my other ingredient I'm adding is pork belly bites. I made a batch of pork belly in the air fryer and had these left over. I thought they'd be great in here because they're very similar to bacon. But speaking of bacon, that's what the recipe calls for, about 6 slices. So I did half with the pork belly and half of bacon, about 3 slices. Now I'm adding a teaspoon of garlic powder to the mix, and we'll blend it all together. I let my cream cheese blocks sit outside the fridge for a bit to get nice and soft. That makes it more easy to spread and more pliable to work with. I'm now adding my dip into the middle part of my platter here, and then I'm going to add a little bit of the bacon bits, a little bit of the cheddar cheese, and those green onions to give it color and to let people know what's inside. It just looks more appetizing, and then you can serve this up with chips or Fritos or vegetables is what I did. I got some fresh cucumbers from our garden and some celery sticks, and I thought they went so great with this dip. And let me tell you, my family loved it so much. Let's hear what they have to say.
I give this a 10 out of 10 stars. I think it's perfectly creamy. The shredded cheese, delicious. Green onion, I love the green onion in it. The bacon, but everything actually.
Did you even 10 out of 10? Okay, and it's low carb.
The cucumbers are really good.
Fresh cucumbers from the garden. All right. This next appetizer was a favorite this year because of the combination of flavors on these prosciutto and peach cheesy crostinis. We're going to go ahead and add 1 cup of ricotta cheese to a bowl. And I have this lemon honey spread. I'm going to add about 1 tablespoon. You don't have to have a lemon honey. You can use any honey, regular honey that you like, but about 1 tablespoon to give that sweetness to your cheese. Now I'm chopping up some prosciutto slices. I'm getting those into a very fine little bite-sized piece, and I'm going to put that into a fry pan. I'm going to cook it up so it gets nice and crisp, and you can use bacon if you'd like. You're just really going for that salty flavor, but prosciutto and peaches go really well together. Once that's all fried up, I'm going to set it to the side, and now I'm going to chop my peach. 1 medium peach will work for both of these appetizers, or you can use 2 small peaches. So I'm going to get my peach into a nice fine dice, and then I will work on my basil. For my basil, I want to have chiffonade ribbons. So the way to do that is get each of your basil leaves, stack them on top of each other, and then roll them up like a cigar. I've never rolled a cigar. I don't know why I said that. And then you're going to finely slice with your knife through the basil leaves, and you will end up with these fine chiffonade ribbons. Now that our ingredients are complete, we're going to go ahead and assemble our crostini. And I have a favorite little crostini round that I always purchase whenever I'm making these, and that is this brand by Cervasi. I just love them because they're a little crunchy but a little soft. They're the perfect texture. If you can't find these, any crostini is going to be fine. And we're just going to go ahead and complete the assembly, but to give it a special touch, I'm going to drizzle it with some balsamic glaze. Now you can drizzle each one individually, but I'll show you here after I'm done assembling how I'm actually going to drizzle the balsamic on top. And then we'll top it with our basil to give it that perfect color and taste and texture. Now it's time for that glaze, and instead of doing them individually, I am going to do this pattern, just drizzling it all across the plate because I think it contrasts so beautifully and almost looks like art. I just love it. So you, like I said, you could do it either way, on them individually or do this drizzle, which I think has a cool impact. The 10th appetizer of the year, but I think it's the #1 appetizer of the year, are these crab and artichoke stuffed shrimp. Let me show you. Okay, here are all my colossal shrimp. We're just gonna pat them dry, get the little bit of that moisture off of there so our oil and seasoning stick to that and we don't get a lot of moisture in our dish. You don't need colossal shrimp. If it's hard to find, extra large will work, but the bigger the shrimp, the easier it will be to stuff. Now these already came deveined, which is great, but I'm gonna go ahead and butterfly them a little bit more, which basically means I'm gonna cut that backside a little deeper so it fans out like a butterfly. There's no shells on these as well. Okay, here's what I'm gonna do to butterfly them. I just start at the tail. It can be slippery. Just start at the tail and I just kind of go down with my serrated knife, and sometimes you might have to go back just a little to make that a little deeper, and now it can fan out a little bit, just like that. We're gonna add our shrimp to our bowl. We're gonna add extra virgin olive oil, about a tablespoon. To that, we're gonna add our seasonings. We have some Old Bay, onion powder, garlic powder, salt, and smoked paprika. We're gonna add that all to our shrimp. Give that a good stir. Our shrimp is well coated. Let's go ahead and make our mixture. For our stuffing mixture, I already started with some spinach. I had some fresh spinach that I just used half the bag, put it into my classic bowl here, classic batter bowl, put it with a little minced garlic and put it in the microwave until it wilted, about 30 to 45 seconds. And now it's nice and wilted. Then I took my scissors and I just did a rough chop, chopped that into bits. To that, we're gonna add our artichoke hearts, and I have half a can here. I'm gonna do the same with my scissors and just give it a rough chop. Perfect. All right, we're gonna add those artichokes here. We're also gonna add a can of white crab meat. We're gonna add a 1/3 cup of mayo. Half a cup of shredded Parmesan cheese. Italian style breadcrumbs. I have about, looks like about half a cup, and I also had a little bit of almond flour to add to it as well. And we're gonna add half a cup of, actually 1 cup of Monterey Jack cheese. And we'll make sure it's seasoned well. Give it a taste test before we stuff our shrimp. Needs just a little salt. And we're gonna add the zest of 1 lemon and the juice of half a lemon. If you like a little kick, you could use pepper jack cheese, give that little kick. All right, we're ready to stuff. Okay, I found a little trick. It's easier to stuff them if you butterfly them out first and get them flat on your pan, and then take a spoonful of stuffing and put it right on top. This cast iron skillet is perfect for this. I love how it just fit them all perfectly. I have done part 1 here. I'm gonna wrap it with plastic wrap And then I'll take it out right before my guests arrive, get it in the oven. But before I cook it, I will drizzle it with a lemon dill butter sauce. All right, our shrimp has been in the fridge. I just got it out. Our oven is at 350. I'm gonna make our butter sauce here. This is 3 tablespoons of butter melted. And I'm gonna add some lemon juice to that. And some dill. I have some dried dill here. I'm gonna add this to a 350-degree oven, and about halfway through, we'll drizzle on that sauce. All right, this has been in the oven about 10 minutes. We're going to drizzle our butter. Oh my gosh, yes. Our dill lemon butter all over here. Might as well do it all. I put this back in the oven for 10 minutes to finish cooking, and then I left it in the warm oven until my guests arrived. It was such a wonderful appetizer. So delicious. The shrimp and the crab, perfection. I hope you enjoyed these appetizers of 2024, the best of countdown. As always, I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you on the next video.